Okay, so Lock the Doors got, it's the same author of 14 Ways to Die, but this got recommended to me as I was reading 14 Ways to Die. Whoever recommended it, shout yourself out in the comments. But this was recommended to me, and I'm really excited to get to read it. So here is the first 5 chapters of Lock the Doors. Part 1. Chapter 1. Home is where the hate is. I was 8 when I figured that out, watching my bedroom window as my mother and her boyfriend argued in the garden. His name was Gary, and he drank a lot, and not because he was thirsty. Mum's words were screeches, Gary's were slurs, and for a little while they were only fighting with their voices. Then he threw the garbage can lid at her, and she crumpled, her knees cracking on the path. Picturing her now, I see her arms held tight against her belly and tears dripping on the flower bed. Mum says most memories are in post-its on the front door of your life, but a few, she says, are tattoos on your soul. This is one of those memories. What I learned is that anything can be a weapon if you know how to use it. The lid was metal and dented. Gary held it over her, casting a shadow across her pleading face. He yelled things I didn't understand. Then Mum caught my eye, and Gary turned and smiled and waved. The worst part, I waved back. I still hate myself for not doing anything, for not knowing what to do. When bad things happen miles away, it's easy to say you'd be a hero. But when it happens to you, especially when you're 8, it's not so easy. Gary's arm stiffened. Then he brought the lid down hard and fast, and my mother screaming as it stopped inches from her face. He laughed, tossed it aside, and went to the pub. All night, Mum made crying noises, tiny ones she whispered over, like she was shushing them to sleep. I lay awake, too scared to touch her, because sometimes the easiest things in the world, like a hug or a smile or an "are you okay," feel impossible. In the morning, I watched her secretly, in between cereal bites and brushes, and when she caught me, she smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My mom had a lot of boyfriends, but some were worse than others. Chapter 2. 4 tiny holes in my new bedroom door. That's the first thing I notice. And then a bigger one on the frame, flaking at the edges, and a curve where the dark wood turns light, a crescent just deep enough for a bolt to slide back and forth. My stepsister's door has 8 holes, each set of 4 not quite level, as if whoever drilled them was fixing a mistake. I hunt for holes and find them everywhere, except for Mum and Jay's room. Their door is perfect, the frame untouched, and that's when I realized what happened here. Our dream home, the house Mom fell in love with the moment she saw it, was someone else's nightmare, because these holes aren't where you'd expect them to be. The locks were on the inside to keep people out. They were on the outside, keeping someone in. Chapter 3. They've taken it off the website, Mum says, looking from her phone. I should hope so, says Jay. We own it. Still, it's nice that it's official. Jay stares at the piles of boxes, then jangles the house keys. It's been official for a while, but Mum's not listening. She spent so long looking at the place online that she can't stop. Although we finally got our dream home, no one seems that happy. Mum prefers the tidy house in the pictures, Jay looks exhausted from shifting all our stuff, and my stepsister Nina is already moaning about reception and how long it'll take to get, anywhere. New house, same life, except that's not totally true because this life is a lot better than our old one before Mum met Jay. We should leave the unpacking until tomorrow, he says. Even though Mom looks disappointed, she agrees. Then we all sit in the gaps between the boxes and eat takeout pizza, pretending this isn't a massive anticlimax. Mom looks at her photos, the ones she took when we visited to measure, and Jay doesn't try to stop her because that's how arguments start. Instead, he looks at me and says, "So, what do you think?" There are holes in the doors, I say. It looks like they locked people in. Jay doesn't respond like I wanted him to. He just says, "We'll fix that when we decorate." He does that a lot, asks questions and ignores answers. If he could pick a stepson, he wouldn't be anything like me. Sometimes I catch him giving me the look, and I know what he's thinking. Why can't he be like every other person? Why does he have to worry so much and say weird things? It could be worse, because some men get angry if you're different. Jay just changes the subject. When are we getting Wi-Fi? Nina asks, because this is far more important. Mom puts her phone down, and the 3 of them discuss it while I go upstairs. The doors are brown with swirls and dark knots, but I don't see the patterns anymore. I only see the holes. Chapter 4. I listen to music until Mom comes in and says, "We're going to bed now if you want to, you know." I nod but don't reply. It's better when she doesn't say it out loud. She doesn't ask if I'm okay. We just stare at each other while I watch her settle on a suitable smile. When it comes out, it's awkward and sags at the edges, but at least she tried. Jay comes up behind her and says, "Good night, mate. You cool?" I'm most certainly not, but I sigh and say, "Yep." "Okay then, see you tomorrow." They stand there a second too long, and then a few more, until finally, Mum breathes out and says, "Sleep well, sweetheart." Their bedroom door closes and I hear mumbling behind the wall. I could try to listen closer, but I don't want to know what they're saying about me. It's nothing I haven't heard before. Instead, I go downstairs, feeling my way through the darkness. It always takes a while to get used to a new house, but eventually, if we stay long enough, I'll be able to move from room to room with my eyes closed. I prefer doing this in the dark. I feel for the front door and push the handle down once, twice, 3 times. Each time it holds firm, but only after 3 can I clap. That's how I know it's locked. Moonlight hovers over the kitchen counters, empty except for a kettle and a microwave. I check the back door 4 times, then clap. Then I touch the windows one by one. On my way back upstairs, I check the front door again, because sometimes the clap doesn't work. It's supposed to stop my doubts to remind me I've already done this, but it doesn't always work. "Clap," I say out loud. Then I take a deep breath, go back to my room, and imagine who slept here before me. Chapter 5. Mr. Trafford comes in to the living room and asks for a tour guide. "We have a potential new student," he says. "She's here with her mother, who wants to show them around." I keep my head down, hoping someone else volunteers, but they all have the same idea, and when Mr. Trafford looms over me, I know I won't be able to escape. "Tom," he says, "would you mind? Teachers at our school like asking rhetorical questions." "Mrs. Pierce," Trafford says, "this is Tom. He'll be showing you around this morning." The girl has her head down. Her mother smiles and says, "Pleased to meet you." "You too," I mumble, but I can't shake the feeling that I know her. She looks too neat and tidy, like she's missing all the messy parts that Mom used to hide until Jay said he loved them. When the woman frowns, I know I've been staring too long. "You look familiar," she says, but Trafford talks over her. "Ready to go?" I look at the girl and she glances at me, her eyes filled with the sadness I haven't seen for a long time, then back at the floor. "Amy's a little unwell today," her mom says. I suddenly feel an extra layer of nerves on top of the usual ones, but I can't get out of it now. "Have you just moved into the area?" I ask. "Not exactly," says Amy's mom. "She's repeating a year. We're looking for a fresh start, aren't we, love?" When she doesn't reply, her mom says, "Amy goes to St. Gregory's. They suggested that a change of scene could bring out the best in her." Amy shivers, then stiffens as her mother touches her arm. When she catches me staring, she says, "Don't worry, Amy can speak for herself." But she doesn't. She stays silent for the whole tour. Sometimes I look at her, then away. Stolen glances, they call them, which is a nice way of saying you're a wuss. Afterward, the woman shakes my hand and says, "You've given us a lot to think about." Then I stand outside reception waiting for Amy to turn around to smile or maybe just to look at me. All that happens is her mom, one step behind, lifts her arm and goes to put it around her daughter's shoulders, but it just hangs there, waiting, then falls back to her side. At the gate after lunch, Mr. Trafford stops me. "Did you sell the place?" he asks. "Yeah, I made everything sound like Disneyland." Some teachers think everything's sarcastic, others think nothing is. "Excellent," he says. "Good job. But wherever Amy Pierce ends up, it won't be here." It looked like she couldn't leave fast enough. And that's when it hits me. I have met her mother before. We all have.